The astronomer alone from Minsk catches a signal from space of which dreamed all the life, but none of the administration are interested in contact with others' mind. And on the contrary, to the guy take great pain to prevent liquidating all who know though something about newcomers. But the stubborn astronomer learns that the civilization technologies strongly ahead of us for a long time, secrets transforms the planet to exterminate all its population. My name is Kostya Fox, maybe. They tell not Merv in this cinema with us right now. In one not wonderful afternoon, the erudite climatologist of Ilan Green in 90 miles from the North Pole finds out blossoming Luga, surrounded with ice rinks, while the radio astronomer Zane to a Hitch and his workmate Kelvin tensely listen attentively to space in hope to catch a signal from extraterrestrial civilizations. From this occupation, it is distracted by a call to the girlfriend of Charms who tries to pull out the guy on a date. And when Zane is already ready to throw everything, and to go to the girl on monitors, their equipment appears a long-awaited signal. Guys forget about everything, rechecking splashes, but they fade as suddenly as appeared. However, scientists manage to write down signals in the morning of the man go to the central laboratory and record it to the head of Phil Gordian. Well, as considers that the signal proceeds from a star Wolf 336 at distance of 14 light-years from the Earth. But Gordian rejects material, as does not see in it anything special, and declares Xena his dismissal under the pretext of reduction of the budget. Nevertheless, he promises to give a film on interpretation, but having seen off astronomers, destroys it. In the evening of Charms comes to Kassein to calm and distract the guy, but it does not manage it. Besides, there is an incredible heat, atypical. For this season, the astronomer constantly thinks only of the received signal, though is surprised to the interest of such girl as Charms to such gawk as it. At this time, Elan tries to finish the researches of climate changes, but cannot obtain the necessary data from the satellite, which suddenly ceased to distinguish certain gas impurity in the atmosphere. And when he will settle into shape, it is unknown. Meanwhile, having been left without work, Zane was forced to accept the offer of telecommunication service and to be engaged in installation of satellite dishes, but he continues to look for the place in the specialty and learns that Phil stipulated it. Having exposed the unreliable performer inclined to inventions, the man goes to laboratory and gets on a lecture about climate change at all, having demanded from Gordon to return the cartridge, but that causes protection, and the man show the doorway behind it calls the former workmate. But at this time in observatory, the guys from defense withdraw all that concerned the caught signal. Zane asks not to say that they have a reserve record, but the Kelvin loses heart and gives everything enraged for and goes to work to Charms. But the girl shows the door it, as she intends to be engaged in career closely. At night, Zane peers at the sky, worrying because of Togo that newcomers can talk to it right now, but nobody hears them, and suddenly dawns on it. Television plates are connected in a special way, can serve as the radio telescope Zane sets to work. Mounting observatory on the attic, activity of the man becomes interested. The neighbor's fellow of Kiki and Zayn allows it to look at the equipment. Next morning to the House of Kelvin there come guys from Office of Service of Gardens and Sites, and inconsiderately will be the astronomer. And Zane agrees to take Kiki in official assistance, and he manages to mark a signal identical to court. Earlier, having analyzed Splash, the lone understands that it is a reciprocal signal which is broadcast from the Earth earlier in space, from where that from Mexico it goes to Kelvin. However, it becomes clear that the former workmate died under strange circumstances. At this time, Elan analyzes received from air probes information and comes to a conclusion that the climate of the Earth catastrophically changes, so in the next 10 years, the mankind waits for rapid warming, and one of the abnormal places located in Mexico, the astronomer flies there, and at the exit from the airport, pays attention to the dealer in souvenirs, and then falls into hands of the taxi driver, who is lucky it to the radio station building. But it turns out that there was a fire? The addition does not exist anymore. The man goes to hotel, where in the evening see the same dealer again, having decided to take a bath Zane to gather water, being surprised to an ugly state, the hotel best in the city, and to listen to the received messages. One of them, Ovchar, the pleased man, listens to its recognition without paying attention to the water flowing on the walls. But here he sees pools on a floor and by some miracle manages to jump out of a bathtub when the ceiling breaks. Ivana of Page. The top floor falls to it, and then both of them punch a floor and fly even below. The dumbfounded Lone raises the head and manages to notice dealers in souvenirs. Having pulled trousers, the man is led in a pursuit and drives the Mexican into the deadlock. But here the door of the house is opened, and so far the Lone distracts. The dealer, as a grasshopper, twists legs and one jump flies up on a roof. Next day, the Lone goes to study the neighborhood of the town. While arrived here, Elan launches into the sky of the probe. Astronomers, it is possible to consider the strange place in the jungle. He goes there and on the way sees how security guards of power plant will confiscate the equipment and Lana. It tries to protest, but nobody listens to it. Mutually stands up for the woman. Both of them are detained and brought to power plant for interrogation. Having studied the equipment, the scientist apologized to couple, having reported that it is unique power plant of absolutely new type and speaks eagernesses of protection. And here the amazed man sees the exact copy of the chief. He immediately curtails a conversation and takes away an Ilana, and at this time Gordian comes to firm on care for sites and employs the same workers. Having given them the address, the man prepares a small suitcase with a strange metal sphere inside. A little later, Kika see how one of men leaves. From Zane's lodge also locks it. The strange sphere left on the attic reveals and to soak up in itself all equipment of the astronomer. Meanwhile, at Zane and an Ioana, the conversation in which they share the opening is struck up. So far, the dealer gets into one of numbers and lets out scorpions. Elan shows to a photo Lone Arctic anomalies, reminding that each accident on the Earth begins with climate change. The astronomer remembers a lecture about transformations. Later, he sees the woman to her number, and it becomes clear that scorpions are started exactly there. After Elan prepares for sleeping, without noticing killing creation, creeping by number, while Zane goes to call. Charms the girl tells that the company which constructed power plant builds the same 3 worlds in the countries. At this time, Elan goes to bed. A minute later, its shout sounds. Meanwhile, Zane, in the middle of night, goes to a research of power plant. It manages to approach the fence when small installation before an entrance turns into the huge antenna. Here the entrance is approached too by the taxi which met and his driver. There takes place scanning and passes for gate. Without having noticed Zane, who got into a trunk, astronomers, it is possible to make the way inside, where he learns that all employees of power plant, actually newcomers. The man goes down deeply under the earth, where observes process of transformation of the alien into the person, which changes the direction of a bend of a knee joint and imitates appearance by means of a new cover. Immediately there is an installation for production of the greenhouse gases, which are the reasons of all processes which described Elan. He watches sometime the device. While it is not noticed by the newcomer, the pursuit begins, but Zane gets into the device for change of appearance. Also, it will absolutely be transformed. It manages to enter the elevator, where the taxi driver, who begins to suspect something is near. It asks alone questions in the language, but that does not answer, and having snatched an opportunity, pushes out the newcomer outside. The man gets out upward when someone else's leather begins to go bubbles and gets down from him. The Lone reaches the car, and at departure from base forces down one of newcomers. However, soon it is stopped by police for speeding. Also sends to local police station. Zane tells the detective interrogating him about an incident at power plant, but for this purpose it sounds unconvincingly. Zane is accused of murder of the person owing to arrival by the car, and then the American demands to show a body of the victim, as he is sure that it was the newcomer. But when a body bring alone sees that it Elan, the astronomer runs from the site. It manages to cling to the Mexican, a rodeo to troop illegally to cross border and to come back home. Having arrived in the States, Zane goes to Phil Gordian when they are summoned. Street Zane, threatening Phil, trying to obtain from him revelations that newcomers plan to destroy human race in 10 years by means of the accelerated global warming. Newcomers do not take out cold and already remake the Earth under the look. Here it turns out that all conversation is written down by Alone on a dictaphone, and the Gordian video camera does not risk to detain for a name in full view of all, and that runs away. But having come back home, the astronomers see that all his equipment disappeared. He tells about all Kiki when he comes. Charms she is concerned by behavior of the guy and volunteers to go with it to observatory to broadcast to mankind the obtained information on satellite telecasting. Kiki gets into the car too, but the chart thinks that Zane went crazy and calls in police while it and Kiki turn on the equipment, and when the plate is adjusted on the necessary wave in observatory, instead of police there comes the Ferganchik of gardeners. One of them attacks Zane and Charms, watching a fight, sees also the countries of a wound on the newcomer's body, and his main jump in the open hatch on a ceiling. After Zane directs to him the fire extinguisher, the girl understands that the groom told her the truth when in observatory. There comes Phil. His maintenance the lone asks to remain Kiki at the equipment and to press the button in due time, and itself together with Charms run to a plate. Couple manages to block doors, but when Zane is going to release transfer to air, Kiki opens a door and gives Phil film, understanding that newcomers will not leave without having destroyed it for Invoker. Happens to the room to a flank to liquid nitrogen, and when aliens rush into the room, it freezes them. Then tries to take a film from Phil's pocket when the spherical device similar to applied to destruction of the equipment of Zane. But more powerful falls out of hands of other of aliens, having understood that this some weapon behind it orders to get out Charms of the room. But an exit is only upward while the girl gets out on a plate. Zane comes back to Phil's pocket, but here the newcomer is enough Zane, and that cuts his frozen hand the Axis sphere so far. Becomes more active and begins to soak up in the created wormhole. All being around, including in the building which develops lowering a plate to the earth, kept on a plate, Charms prays for Zane's rescue, and he appears from the hatch of steam, sees Kiki costing below greens, holding in hand the treasured cartridge with a film to order to the guy to go to the, and to report that their plan failed, and everything finds mankind out soon. Having twisted Kiki knees, runs away a time later on TV. There are news about an unprecedented heat, which is interrupted by conversation recording with Phil, who assures that people have no right to live on the earth if are not able to care for it. Despite a fantastic plot, the picture perfectly illustrates one very essential trouble of inhabitants of the earth, and in any country of the world. Negative example of Togo that occurs when the person tries to get to the truth, and representatives of higher instances are ready to do anything to interfere with the investigation begun by the mere mortal. Do not forget to put like to write comments as to you this movie, and with you was MOREFOX. We will meet very soon.